Hey everybody, it's Charlie at Charlie's Flybox, and we have been talking today with a few customers. Max actually went on a long, in-depth dive on fly floatants with a customer earlier, and they said, you guys should make a video of that. So we came back and we thought we'd do that. And so we're going to talk about some of the floatants that we carry and the different applications for each one of them. Starting with liquid floatants. Liquid floatants are things like Flyagra, dry shake liquid, and high and dry liquid. The idea of these, I think these work best for larger flies, big foamy bodied stuffed hoppers, things like that, things that have got some bigger, coarser materials on them. And while you can take these on the water and dip your fly in them and then false cast them before they hit the water, that's the key to using them on the water. The best way I found to use most of these, Flyagra in particular, is to take the fly and dip it and then let it dry. So that means doing it ahead of time, pre-treating the flies. Honestly, if you pre-treat your flies with Flyagra and let it dry on there, it is astonishing how long they will float, like all summer. You'll lose the fly before it starts to get waterlogged. Makes a huge difference. So liquids are more of a pre-treatment for larger flies. And I'd say, down to about a size 12 is probably my cutoff there. I don't really use the liquid floatants for smaller stuff, with the exception of the dry shake liquid. This stuff dries very quickly. You can use this on the water very easily. It is a much thinner formula. I don't know exactly what it's made out of. The label's in Japanese, and we don't know what it's made out of, but I think it says floats real good, is what I think it says on there, and it does. So that's liquid floatants. Gel floatants have been around forever. You guys recognize gink. That's the stuff your dad used, the stuff your grandpa used, and maybe is the stuff you still use. And it's good stuff. It's been around a long time. I do think Aquel is probably a little bit better stuff and works very similarly, but is much more temperature stable. It doesn't turn to gasoline when it's warm, and it doesn't turn to Vaseline when it's cold. The consistency of it is much more stable, where if you've ever had a tube of gink in the wintertime, you know how hard you got to squeeze that tube to get it to come out of there. These are for really all-purpose use. You can use them on all kinds of things. Any size fly. You can put pretty big gob on a big fly and it'll work just fine. A little smear on a small fly. Neither one work particularly well for CDC. My favorite gel floatant is Tiemco Dry Magic, and I've talked about this a lot. Dry Magic is a very thin gel. Works really well on CDC. It does not mat the fibers down, which these guys can. So it doesn't mat the fibers down on CDC, but any small fly, what I find the biggest difference with this is it stays on a lot longer. It doesn't rub off the fly as easily. So Dry Magic is sort of my floatant of choice for anything that's not a big foamy fly. And truth be told, I've put it on plenty of big foamy flies also. You're just using a lot of it all at once on a big fly. And that kind of takes us to powders. There is high and dry powder, dry shake powder, and frog's fanny. And these are all desiccant and silica combinations. Dry shake has been the one that's been around forever. Shimmy shake is what everybody calls this. This is sort of the industry standard. This is a dry shake with, or a fumed silica with desiccant in it. And what that means is it's got little crystals in the bottom with some fumed silica powder. And what that does is it's going to suck the water out of your fly. These all work about the same way. I'll get to the frog's fanny here in a minute. The idea of these is that these are going to help to dry your fly out. If you're just fishing and not catching a ton of fish and your fly starts to get waterlogged, you can drop it right in there, give it a little shake. One of the cool things about this bottle is it's got sort of a funnel top. It's got a little pad up here, so you can actually close your tippet in there, drop the fly in, give it a shake, open it back up, and pull your fly out, blow it off, and cast it on the water. It also makes the fly a little easier to see. That goes for both of these. On smaller flies, what I like is this frog's fanny. So frog's fanny it's just fumed silica. There's no desiccant in this. And it's got a little brush, and you can see how a lot of it kind of floats away as I open this up. But it's just fumed silica, and with that brush I can work that down into the wing on a mole fly or even a small elk caddis. I can work this down into the fibers and get them dried out. Now, the process is important on how you use these things. If I take a mole fly and I tie it on my leader and I put a little smear of Dry Magic on the wing, I'm good to go for a minute. I'll catch maybe a couple, 3 fish. That usually takes about 1 minute for me because I'm real good at this. But once I've caught a couple 3 fish, the fly will start to sink. And the reason it starts to sink is because the fly has gotten slimed. And what I mean by that is it's got fish slime on it from the fish's mouth. And those of you that have had trouble getting little CDC flies to float, especially after catching a fish or having to cycle through a bunch of them, I did it for years. This is the key to that. What you want to do is take the fly and rinse it off in the water. I'd usually just hold it in my fingers or my forceps and just swish it in the water. And then I'll use a dry fly patch. This is the Wonder Cloth. This is just an absorbent piece of material that will dry the fly out, so you can wipe that fish slime off. Once you've got the slime off, the fly's back in action again. And you can either reapply a little bit more dry magic, or you can take some frog's fanny and dry it out a little bit further. I like to use the dry magic only once the fly's caught a bunch of fish, once it's really started to get soaked and slimed up. It's amazing how long you can make one fly last with the right process. And that's sort of the gist of all these different floatants. They all have different applications. Like I say, liquids for bigger flies I think works best. Gels for the smaller size stuff. A quell is again, that's an industry standard for everybody's got a tube of this, but that's the best place to use that is sort of, you know, all your general dry fly use. Not so much on CDC though. If you go put it on real thin, it can help there, but honestly I think by the time you put it on real thin, there's probably not much of it there. But that's our little story on floatants. I'm sure we've left some pieces out. I'm sure we'll have some questions and comments, and we'll do our best to answer them. But if you've got any ideas for other videos that you want us to explain this or that, or at least hear our take on it, we're more than happy, and we are actually looking forward to it. So thanks for watching. I'm Charlie at Charlie's Flybox.